Hi, I'm Terra and today I'm going to tell you my story of survival from Dirty John Meehan. Today's story includes triggers of domestic violence. So if you are in a domestic violence situation or have been, just a warning that this video might trigger you. On October 8th, 2014, my mom met Dirty John Meehan. She met him for a date at Houston's in Irvine, California. She met him on a website called Our Time Dating. It was for people that were in their seniors. My mom just had the worst luck with men. She had dated dud after dud after dud, and all of these men just were not her match in a sense. So my mom met up with John. He came over to her house. It was a penthouse in Irvine, California, actually right across the street from where the restaurant was, and the place was called the Marquee. It was one of the penthouses at the top, but like second to top. He just walked in and he was looking around. My sister Jacqueline was also there, and she was feeling him out in a sense. But he was really feeling her out in the whole situation. My sister asked him some questions. I don't quite remember what she asked him because I wasn't there. But she was just asking him along the lines of like, what does he do? And my sister worked in the medical field. So my sister had some knowledge about what went on in the medical field because my sister worked for a plastic surgeon. My sister was already suspicious of him, but my mom went on this date with him and she had the best time. They just had the best conversations. They just hit it off, and then she invited him up for coffee or tea or something like that. And when my mom invites someone up for coffee or tea, it's not because she wants some hanky-panky or anything like that. She actually wants to talk and conversate. You know, other people could get the wrong impression by someone asking that. So they went upstairs and my mom was talking to him, and then he went to her bedroom. He just laid on her bed. He was saying, oh, this is super comfortable, and just making comments about how great the bed felt. That made her super uncomfortable, and she told him, please get off my bed. He didn't respond well to that. He actually threw a temper tantrum and he ended up leaving. So my mom was just in disbelief of what just happened and wrote him off. So I don't remember if it was the next day or a few days later, but he ended up calling my mom, apologizing to her, and wanting another chance. So my mom gave him another chance, and then from there, it was magical in her opinion. He just love bombed on her, and if you don't know what love bombing means, it means when someone is giving you so much attention in the beginning, making you feel so great in the beginning, doing things like maybe giving you little coffees. He would get her a coffee every day. He would even hold her purse all the time, which I thought was kind of weird. Then he would just be like, oh, I want to help you with everything. I want to help you out. And that was also his way of getting in. So he love bombed her, and then he developed her trust. You know, he was really someone that she could depend on, someone that was there for her. The only issue then was that he didn't get along with my sister Jacqueline. And my sister Jacqueline was calling me. I was living in Vegas at the time, doing my dog grooming thing. I was also working background in movies and TV shows and stuff. So I was doing my own thing in Vegas. My sister would tell me that this guy is the worst, that this guy is not who he says he is, that she's just so suspicious of him. I was skeptical, but I also knew that my sister didn't like a lot of my mom's significant others. I wanted to go in and have my own opinion of everything. So my mom ended up moving down to Balboa, in this really cute place. It was a 3-bedroom place. There was literally like a downstairs, but that wasn't hers. So the top was hers. And then there was 3 bedrooms and then a loft. It was a beautiful house, you know, had a beautiful view of the ocean, was on the ocean front. And then you walk upstairs and there's a whole rooftop where you could watch fireworks, watch the boats go by. It's just so beautiful. She moved there because my sister was not having it, and my sister and my mom were living together. I started to come out the second week of November 2014 to help my mom move and to also be in California because I was getting a little homesick because I was living in Vegas and just not having such a great time there in a sense. It was really hard to make friends for me. I didn't have the best luck of friends in a sense. This one girl tried some stuff at my house when I was out of town, and you know, that's a different story for later. But it was really hard to make like wholesome, great friends over there. I actually do have some friends that I'm still friends with, and those friends are just amazing. But it just wasn't the best time for me. I was also having a hard time with my relationship at the time, but trying to make it work. I go out to California with my boyfriend at the time. We put our 3 dogs in the car and we head over to Irvine first to the penthouse so that we can help my mom move. We get over there and we see, well, like we get over there after a 4.5-hour drive. But we get there and John is trying to get a mattress on top of the van. And I know it's him because it's one of the Ambrosia vans, and that was my mom's company. I see him. I say to my significant other at the time, "Oh, hey, I think that's John." We go over there and my boyfriend at the time, Jimmy, he had a cast on, so it was really hard for him to help John put the mattress on top of the car. So I was watching kind of like Tweedledee and Tweedledum do it in a sense. But hey, they were going to get it done, and they did. But John was kind of standoffish and didn't really want help with the mattress. That was our initial meet. And then my mom comes downstairs and she introduces us to John. She's like, "Hey, this is John." We introduce ourselves and then we go on to moving. So that day we packed up the cars. Basically, when we got there, most of the car was packed up, so there wasn't too much to do. We then headed over to the Balboa house. From there, we unloaded everything from the car, made sure everything was good. We also wanted to take a break, so we went to California Pizza Kitchen that night. And my friend Dan, he had also come over because I just came into town and I wanted to see my friends. So me, Jimmy, and my friend Dan, my mom, and John all went to California Pizza Kitchen at Fashion Island. So we get there, we sit down, and dinner is great. I'm talking about my medical issues at the moment and how I was having pain and how I was having just issues with my body, everything. John told me that he thinks I have ovarian cyst. So we talked about that a little bit. I believed him. There was nothing we could really do about my health then other than speculate. But he was pretty sure that I had ovarian cyst because, you know, John knew everything. I would then ask him questions about his family, about his life, about him being a doctor, but he didn't really want to give me all the answers. He wanted just to give me an answer where it was closed-ended, where I couldn't really ask more and I couldn't elaborate on them, and we weren't going to discuss that topic further. Dinner went well, I guess, and then John actually pays for the bill. Then we go back to the place. And when we get back to the place, my mom gets out of the car, goes upstairs, and John's still in the car with us. I try to open the door and the child locks are on the door. Tell John, "Hey John, I think the child locks are on the door. Can you let me out?" He essentially doesn't hear me, or I think he doesn't hear me. So I say it again a bit louder. "Hey John, can you let me out of the car? The child locks are on." And he literally gets out of the car and he goes upstairs. This was really the first red flag that I was able to see with John. Instead, I gaslit myself and I told myself, oh, he didn't hear me. And then I texted my mom and I was a bit dramatic because I was just like, that was weird. Why would he do that? And we were also in the back and discussing, like, that was weird, right? Like, did you think he heard me? And we were like, yeah, I think he heard you, but I don't know. I either hop over the front seat or my mom comes down. I can't really remember that part, but I get out of the car. Go up. I think we're unpacking more, and the dogs actually had runs throughout the house, and the neighbor left a note saying that dogs are not allowed to be there. I believe that was my dog's anxiety of also being in a new place, and maybe the anxiety and tension from John in a sense, and getting to know him and just having that feeling and vibes. I don't know. I think there was definitely stress with the dog. My mom was irritated because she didn't want John to have a bad impression, and John was also pissed, and her house also smelled like dog stuff. That trip, we just hung out. I think the next night we did a taco night with my friends. My friend Tina also came over along with Dan. Jimmy was there. We just had a good time in a sense. And John was happy. He was drinking. He was, I think, taking pills. At least I saw him take a pills, and then he had all these pills, these medicine bottles lined up. So I thought that was super interesting. But hey, who knows? He's a bit older and people have medication, and my mom had medication, so who knows? So as time goes on, just the vibe is not really great, but it's okay. John's stuff is kind of everywhere in the house, but he doesn't have that many things. And I'm just noticing this. And then I'm also having my mom's assistant buzz in my ear and say, something's not right. I tried warning her about John. I don't think your mom's with the best guy. So I was also having that feedback. At this point, I'm very curious for myself. I end up going back to Vegas. The following week was Thanksgiving week. So I was really only there for like 3 days or something like that. We get back, we go to Newport Beach, we go to Balboa, we go to the house, and we stayed there with our dogs. We're excited because my mom has this new place. Right now, I'm iffy of John, but I'm not really catching light onto him too much. This week is interesting too because I just get to know him a bit more, and what I find is not great. It was the day before Thanksgiving. I went grocery shopping. I got all the groceries for Thanksgiving for us to cook everything. We were gonna have it at my mom's house in Balboa. My mom went to the hospital with John because his arm was hurting. I was suspicious of that because I had a lot of friends that had issues with addiction. And so I was skeptical of what he was in the hospital for. And a lot of them said their arms would hurt all the time, and that's one of the reasons why they would be frequent flyers in a sense. I was skeptical of that and not knowing what to think, just very suspicious. And then I noticed that John was driving my mom's car everywhere. Why is he doing that if he says that he's an anesthesiologist, he's a doctor? Shouldn't he have a car, or at least money to have a car? And my mom told me this elaborate story of how he had all his cars stolen in the desert in his storage. It was like 2 or 3 cars or something like that. And then there was a motorcycle and a bunch of other things. So there was a still ongoing claim about that. And from my experience dealing with insurance, the claims, you either get a rental car or the claim gets resolved pretty quickly in a sense. I was very skeptical about that. And then my sister went to get her hair done. Our hairdresser does all of our hair at this time. And the hairdresser was telling us how John is weird. how there's something about him, how she thinks he's cheating on my mom or with other girls in a sense. He seems like a grifter, and just not saying the best things about him and just saying basically he's a creep. I get the worst vibes from him. And I cut his hair and did not have the best experience. I thought he was really creepy. So that was what our hairdresser was telling us. We got even more concerned then, and my thoughts about him being in the hospital were 100% correct, but I didn't find that out until way later. I get back to the house. I'm in the guest room where me and my boyfriend and my 3 dogs are staying. My mom gets home, comes in the doorway. She's asking me why I'm sending her all these text messages, questioning who John is, asking her why he doesn't have a car, why this and why that. And I also walked into her room to use a Q-tip earlier and saw that all his stuff was there. This isn't looking good in my opinion. And either she's lying to me, he's lying to me, they're both lying to me, or something's just wrong here. I find out that she was just upset about it all. My mom is continuing to talk to me. John comes right up behind her and starts screaming at me. He says some FUs to me. He says, "Terra, you only want your mom for yourself. You don't want to see your mom happy." I was thinking, what? And I yelled back because I was reactive. I said, "No, John, that's what you want." I ended up being right about that in the end, but we don't find out until later. So John's continuing to scream at me, and I'm continuing to scream at John. John's telling me that I only want my mom for my money, and I'm also telling him, "No, John, that's what you want." We're going back and forth, just yelling FUs at each other. And then my mom looks to my boyfriend at the time, and she says, "Is this what you think?" My boyfriend at the time says, "Well, Deborah, something is up here," essentially along those lines. My mom just doesn't have the best response. She just is in disbelief that he would say that. So Jimmy and I are packing up our stuff, and we're trying to get out of there because we don't know what to do. We're not welcomed here. Obviously, we need to get away from this man. So I pack up my stuff. We're yelling. I'm telling my mom, "I can't believe you're kicking me out." She just doesn't know what to say. I'm not invited to Thanksgiving the next day, and it's very hurtful. I end up going to my sister's house. The dogs weren't allowed there, so we had to sneak them into boxes in the elevator and then bring them upstairs. And that's when my sister was texting my mom, or so we thought it was my mom at the time. My mom was telling my sister to end it, to jump headfirst off of a building, preferred, and just saying more and more horrible things to her. I was just holding my sister. She was shaking. I looked at my sister's phone, and I noticed that the words were not how my mom would word things. So I told my sister, "I don't think that this is my mom. I don't think this is my mom." And I was pretty bad. And I just remember holding my sister and my sister holding me, my ex holding me at the same time, and just crying because it was so hard and we felt like we were losing our mom, and it was Thanksgiving. That day I was pretty low. I was pretty sad. So was my boyfriend at the time. My sister was sad as well. We ended up saying that we need to do something for Thanksgiving, even if we're not invited to our moms. My sister's boyfriend cooked us a dinner. It was pretty nice, but before that, my sister went over to my mom's place. She caused a scene. I think she threw a vase or a photo or something like that. I knew she threw something. She just caused a scene because it was messed up that we weren't allowed at Thanksgiving, and this guy was only in my mom's life for a little over a month and a half. So it was very suspicious, and we were just in disbelief because we couldn't believe that this guy was there over us. I ended up going back to Vegas with my dogs and just trying to recuperate in a sense, but I also wanted to prove my mom wrong. I wanted to prove to my mom that I didn't want her money and that I didn't need her support and that what he was saying wasn't true. I ended up busting my butt off, making money, and paying for rent that month, paying for food, everything. And then I ended up having to ask my sister for a little bit of help, and she ended up helping me as well. The thought of having my mom out of my life was so hard. So I ended up talking to her, and we agreed to go to therapy to mediate how we could have John go to Christmas and me be okay with it. My sister, Jacqueline, was not going to show up at all. She was pissed. Her and my mom still weren't talking, or if they were, it was screaming and yelling at each other or just angry messages to each other. Who knows if that was John or my mom? We just don't know some of the time. My sister wasn't gonna go at all, but I wanted to see my mom and I didn't want to miss out on another holiday. My boyfriend at the time, he didn't want to deal with any of this, so he actually stayed behind in Vegas to do Christmas with his dad and his stepmom. I went to California to try to have a good Christmas with my mom. So we went to therapy, and this was a therapist that was getting her hours to get her license in a sense. So she was a newbie, but she still had some experience. My mom had gone to her previously for a lot of sessions, and she was seeing great benefits with her. My mom was also told by her to put a lot of boundaries up. However, that backfired with us, but I think it was good overall, just not the timing for those boundaries. I went into the session with my mom. We were very cold to each other in a sense, but I don't know if it was cold or just like awkwardness. We talked about Christmas. I was very skeptical of John. I just wanted to talk about the skeptics of him, to be honest. But the therapist told me, hey, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about how we can spend a great Christmas together and have great boundaries within the situation. So we talked about how we could do the boundaries, and we agreed upon that John would be hanging out with the boys and I would be hanging out with the girls and the kids. Because usually the guys always go hang out together, and that's what happens anyways. So it's the day of Christmas morning, and I show up before my mom and John, and then my mom and John come rolling in. John is holding a big pile of presents, and he goes straight to the kids. So this is already not what we decided, and John, in my opinion, is manipulating the situation. I end up going to the garage and start just crying. My niece comes in and she's comforting me, and she's telling me it will be all right, Terra. And I can already tell that she's catching light of something's not right here. Then my grandma comes in the garage and she basically told me, oh, Terra, like, why can't we basically all get along? And encourages me to make up with him or just get along with him. I'm not really sure, but I'm not going to do what she says because I don't think I should do that with John, and I'm seeing right through his BS. So that day was really interesting. I tried to do my best, and then I ended up leaving later on because I don't need to deal with that. I went back to my sister's because I was staying with her, and I just tried to have a good time with my sister, even though it was very emotional and it was very sad. So time goes on, and my family hires a private investigator to look into John because my other siblings are now seeing that he is not such a great guy. And so they want to know some answers.